Yo, Cantor here. I recently decided to read a bunch of one-shots because I never really read that many and I just wanted to catch up a bit on them. I also had a question in mind for some time now, namely, what exactly makes a one-shot good? And for this I wanted to look at the highest and lowest rated one-shots and compare what works in them and what doesn't work. But after reading the lowest rated manga for one of my previous videos, I changed my mind a bit on that. I thought that it would be pretty fucking clear what went wrong in the worst rated ones and that there wouldn't be that much to compare. So I thought of something else to do. While I still did read the 5 highest and lowest rated one-shots, I additionally took a look at the middle of the pack and read 6 really mediocre one-shots. And I'm talking like there are like around when I did read them there was like 1,380 rated one shots on Mal, and I read like number 690 or something, and all of those from around there, so like actually right in the middle. And comparing those to the highest rated ones actually led to some interesting things that I thought about them and that I think would be a bit or kinda interesting to talk about. But before I get to comparing them and the results, I'd like to talk a bit about what I actually read. So first up, I didn't read the actually highest rated one-shots, cause a lot of them are related to an existing manga or anime, and I thought that it might impact the score a bit, so I read the 5 highest rated one-shots that are completely unrelated to any existing properties. So first I'll briefly review the manga that I've read for this. I won't go into too much detail though, I just want you to see what I'm working with and what I read for this video, so let's just get into that. So first up we have the 5th lowest rated one-shot called School Kill, sitting at a solid 5.02. Well yeah, it's a 9-page manga with no dialogue. A nerdy guy likes a girl, performs in his underpants for her, and she is with her boyfriend, and he tries to hit the boyfriend and gets kicked in the fucking face. He then sees her panties and smiles. It was pretty funny, to be honest. Stupid and funny. I liked it. 5.4 out of 10. No idea why it's rated this low, to be honest. It's just stupid. And next we have the 5th highest rated one-shot, being Nageku Shinigami at 7.62. It's about a Shinigami that gets tasked to kill a terminally ill girl. He instead falls in love with her and starts to think a lot about the situation he's in. No matter what he does, she will die in the end, but does he have the strength to kill her himself? It's a pretty tragic love story with a strong motive of death and opening up to others. It even gets pretty cute when the Shinigami gets the girl a book that she wants, but sees that her mother had already gotten it for her and tries to hide the fact that he also bought it. At the end he decides to kill her, but is so sad about it that he starts crying, which shouldn't be possible for a Shinigami. Turns out that his tears have the powers of an angel and that they can save her. She doesn't remember him though, but that's okay, he is glad that she's okay. I really enjoyed it up to the fake death of the main girl. I would have preferred if she actually died and the story overall being a tragedy. But the ending also has... it's okay. I personally would just have it like the other way. The art was also pretty fitting and just pretty good overall. I enjoyed the read, I would recommend reading it. 7.2 out of 10. Next up is Sokorimate, rated at a 6.65 and is one of the mediocre ones. It's a story about a girl and a boy with the exact same face in the same class. They have very different personalities, but are friends. She is a bit tomboyish, he is a huge narcissist. She is in love with a guy, but the guy mistakes her for him and tells her that he isn't interested in her. And he tells her that she is cute and cuts his hair from the next day, and they seem to develop feelings for each other. It's kinda short and kinda cute, I guess, but I don't know, it didn't quite click with me, but it's okay. The art is fairly good and it looks very well made. Just the story wasn't quite there for me, so 4 out of 10 overall. Next we have Harukoma, rated at 6.66, also one of the mediocre ones. It's about a princess from a small kingdom that arrives in a small village after a failed assassination attempt from her younger brother. She lives her days on high alert and wonders what good this world is even anymore. She meets a weird monk and doesn't understand what he is doing at all. Finally, after a while, she realizes that he is composing a song. Soon after, her brother attacks her, but she manages to kill him. She then hears the monk's song and remembers that humans can also create beautiful things instead of just death and famine and other horrible stuff. It ends with her walking off into the distance. Overall, I enjoyed the story. It was very simple, but it served its purpose well. Same with the characters, I'd say. The main part of the one-shot was definitely the art for me. It was really well done and it looked really pretty. I liked it. Overall, I think this was pretty good. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, some nice art to look at. 5.7 out of 10. And next up we have the fourth lowest rated one-shot being Ikenie Yakata, rated at also 5.02. It's a horror story about a couple that stumbles into a mansion with people that feed other humans to their weird baby-like basement creature that is maybe also their god. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. The guy gets yeeted and the girl destroys the creepy main bad guy lady and escapes. It was kind of boring. Yeah, the art makes it look like a gag manga and I don't think it's supposed to be a gag manga. It was just kind of bad, but whatever, it's 3 out of 10. And next up we have the fourth highest rated one-shot being Dear Green at 7.63. It's about a rebellious teenage girl. She has an older sister that is just better than her in any way. She probably isn't actually, but she's just a bit older and just more mature and just a bit further in life. And the girl just feels like she's living in her shadow. One day she goes to her secret hiding place to play the recorder like every day and meets a boy which turns out to be a young genius photographer. They grow closer to each other and he encourages her to stand up for herself while also thinking about what other people have going on in their lives. It turns out that he had photographed her when he visited the town a few years back and wants to take another picture of her, this time with her consent and her knowing. But it also turns out that he has to go to France to study and they kiss and say goodbye. She decides to continue playing the flute and it's kinda for him though, which kinda sucks. And it ends. I don't know, it was alright. I tend to like stories about self-worth and character growth and it was definitely better than the Ghost Rooftop story I'm gonna talk about in a bit. It was just a shame that it kind of felt like she did it for him instead of for her in the end. The art was pretty alright, very decent shoujo art. Overall I think it's just 6.3 out of 10, it was pretty good. And next we have Okuyu de Kimi to Yume Miru, or the rooftop one. It's a love and learning to value yourself story of a high school girl that meets a strange boy on the rooftop and falls in love with him. She spends a lot of time with him and realizes that he is a ghost of a boy that fell from the roof like 20 years ago. She learns to value her own life and how fortunate she is to have friends and so on. It was alright, it didn't quite click with me, to be honest. It's not badly constructed by any means, I just saw it coming from a mile away and it wasn't good enough on its own to make up for that. The art is also not amazing, it's just really mediocre at best. Overall it wasn't bad, just a bit below average and forgettable, and like I said, it was just kinda the version of the other one and another one that's gonna come worse. So like 4.3 out of 10. And now we have Neko no Temo at a 6.66, another mediocre one. It's about a human teacher in a school of yokai. He will get eaten if his students find out that he's a human, which is kinda bad. Luckily he meets a cat girl yokai that turns out to be his old dead cat that helps him hide his scent by using her own. She rubs onto him a lot and we get some student-teacher shenanigans. It's also kinda weird considering that the guy is getting sexually interested in his own dead cat, but I guess she's a high school cat girl with boobies now, so it's not as bad, I guess. Still, it's kind of weird. I do like cats a lot, so I did enjoy the story overall, and I can feel that the cat really liked her owner, and the backstory was kind of sad, and I just wish that it wasn't this horny and more wholesome, but whatever. The art is also pretty serviceable and it fits the tone of the story well. I also think that this is supposed to be a pilot episode, at least it feels like it. 5.9 out of 10. I liked it. I like cats. And next we have the third lowest rated one, being Kagame no Kuni no Alice at 4.89. It's a story about a girl that is confused why all the guys are staring at her mom's breasts. In all honesty, this one shot really isn't that much about the story or the characters at all. It's very hard to follow and has no dialogue at all. But I don't mind it too much. It's supposed to be vague and I respect it for that. And the art is... It's fucking amazing. I love artsy shit like this. It looks rough and defined at the same time. One of the best ones I've read for this. Like a solid 7.5 out of 10. I think people really dislike it because the story and the style are weird and unconventional, but I like that shit, so sign me up, brother. Next we have Yusha Goiku no Karimichi, and it's the third highest rated one-shot. It's a story about the way back home of a group of adventurers from the Demon King's castle. The main character is a teenage mage of the group who got picked up by the other three along the way. I don't want to spoil anything here, please go ahead and read it for yourself, it's just amazing. The story is really well done, a mostly unique concept and the execution is just great. I really have very little to complain about, the twist is a bit obvious from the start, but I think that that's intentional and it's not really a problem. You should read it yourself to understand that. The characters are also really well done. The main character is just actually just great, I don't know. It's simple and it just works. The art, oh my god, the art is amazing as well. It's atmospheric as fuck and the pacing of the story is just perfectly done and the panel size, the occasional color pages, everything just works. The length was also perfect, I don't know, it's just... I really liked it, it was the best one-shot I've ever read in my life. 9 out of 10, please go ahead and read it. Next up we have one of the mediocre ones again, called Tasugare Schrödinger. I probably should be Schrödinger, but I don't know. At a 6.66. It's a story about two childhood friends that meet each other again after being apart for 5 years. One of them is carefree as hell, even getting hit by cars because he isn't looking, and the other one is a immature type. And the carefree guy can fly, but only if he holds his friend's hand. They walk home from school together and find a weird door. And the carefree guy goes in it and meets a mysterious lady that tells him about special magic powers, but he can't sense any from him anymore. The friend comes in and turns out that he has all the powers. Wow, that's really surprising. They fight a bit and the carefree guy leaves and the chick wants to take what's hers. But luckily the carefree guy gets back just in time to save his friend and they have to fight her and the mature guy jumps over his shadow and yay, they win and like each other and it's the end. It was okay, I guess. I felt pretty much nothing while reading this, it was just okay. The characters were okay, the art was okay, everything was okay. I have no strong emotions about this whatsoever. 4 out of 10, forgettable as hell. And here comes the second lowest rated one, called My Sweet Sisters at a 4.7. It's a 4-page manga about two sisters on the beach. It's edgy as fuck. They look like lollies. One of them has big boobies. Well, at least the dolphins were kinda cute. 1.5 out of 10. And the second highest rated one is Kon no Ki Konoha at 7.93. It's about a girl that meets a strange boy in the woods. He isn't a normal boy, and after meeting him a few times, he tells her that he is basically a ghost living in a tree and that he can only come out when the leaves are falling. From that point on, she waits every year for fall and visits him in the forest as they grow closer and closer. He ages with the tree, meaning that he grows older at a way slower pace than her. When she is 16, they seem to be about the same age and are clearly in love, but his circumstances just make a normal relationship completely impossible. A boy in school is also interested in her, but all she can think about is just it's just not right for her. It just doesn't feel right for her. One day, the tree ghost even basically kills one of his own kind to save her, and at the end, the big forest fire breaks out and the tree gets destroyed. He says his final goodbyes to her as he leaves this world. Overall, the story is constructed very well and the pacing is done almost perfectly as well. I'm just not too much into love stories, but I can tell that this is a pretty good one. I kinda liked it. The characters were also done really well and the art was also very nice. It's just a really competently done love story in every aspect. Personally, for me, it's a 6.7 out of 10, but I can understand why other people would rate this way higher. And now we're at the last mediocre one, being a Imasara fantasy, also at a 6.66. It's a story about a 37-year-old man that gets a magic genie lamp from an old lady in a train. He takes it home and prepares a few lottery tickets to use for his wish to win in them. Turns out that that's not possible and that he can't wish for money or love. The genie instead proposes that he should wish for what his younger self wanted, so he does. He promptly turns into a light novel protagonist and has to save the world from the Demon King that combines all of the cliches he thought about. He also gets a cliched heroine sidekick and is a walking cliche himself. After explaining everything to his wife, he goes on a journey and after 3 years is finally able to defeat the big baddie. His second wish is to restore the world to its former state, and his third wish is for the good health of his family. He realizes that sometimes the smallest wishes are the best. He then tries to write a light novel about his adventures, but kinda fails, but that's alright. It's ultimately a story about what's really important in life and that it's never too late to try new things. It's pretty alright and I think that it does what it wants to do pretty well. And yeah, the characters are fun and pretty alright and the art was really good. But that's to be expected. This one shot was done by Satoshi Mizukami, after all, a very well known and successful mangaka. I really like this one shot. It just did what it wanted to and it did it well, so 6.4 out of 10. And now we finally come to the worst one shot of them all, being at Sanen Nagara Chigaimasu at 3.25. It's really lowly rated. Like, even I think the second lowest rated thing that we've ever covered here, except fucking High School Musical. And well, yeah, I can tell why this is the worst rated one. A girl meets a guy on an escalator and it's love at first sight. He tells her to go up and they meet at a cafe and talk about themselves. He is 29 and she's 18 and a high school student. They then go to his room and sign marriage papers. He has to ask for her name to do this. Then he asks if she's a virgin and she says yup, to which he basically says nice. Then they kiss and it's over. What the fuck? This is a fucking travesty. It's so stupid and it's funny in a way, but it also leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It feels to a degree like the girl is getting used by him and I really don't like it. But it's also so absurd that it doesn't feel real at all, so there's that. The art is also not great at all. The characters look kinda off most of the time. Not too bad though, whatever. But overall I just kinda hate it. The worst one shot? Maybe. It kinda deserves it. 1 out of 10. Yikes. And with that, we've also come to the highest rated one-shot, being Tokidoki at 8.14. It's about a boy and a girl in high school. He's a very active, energetic guy, while she is a gloomy girl that doesn't interact with others at all. One day, by chance, they meet and get to talk. Turns out that she has a very rare heart disease that will end her life in 6 to 7 years, and that she can count her heartbeats that she has left. She never did any fun activities because of the fear of getting her heart rate up too high and lowering her lifespan in the process. He takes her to a variety of different activities over the course of the summer, and they grow very close to each other. One day he asks her about the pick in her hair, and she reluctantly tells him that she plays guitar and actually plays it for him and even sings for him. He gets her to perform in front of the light music club that he's a member of, and they plan to write songs and perform in a few months. Time goes by and the concert is here. Before the concert she loses her pick though, and he goes to search for it. It gets returned to her by another member that tells her that he won't be able to perform on stage. She goes to meet him, and it turns out that he has the same 1 in a million heart disease as her, and that his beats are about to run out. He tells her that the last thing he wants to hear is her singing, and she fulfills his wish and starts the concert as he dies. She becomes a famous artist and dies a few years later after a happy life. First things first, this is by no means a bad story. It just feels a bit, how should I say, cheap. I don't know if the author has seen or read The Fault in Our Stars, but it's very similar to that. High schoolers that fall in love, and the main guy seems to be fine and helps the girl live the life she wants, but turns out that he wasn't fine after all and dies. My enjoyment gets tempered by this quite a bit. It just doesn't feel unique, but I can see the story working for others way better that aren't aware of this very similar already existing story. I also wasn't too shocked by him having the same illness as her, I kinda saw it coming. But it's fine nonetheless. The characters are pretty well done, I'd say. They felt believable and had good chemistry overall. The art was also very good, very fitting for the story, nothing crazy, nothing to complain about either. Overall, it's a shame that I had seen the Hollywood schlock before reading this, but oh well. 6.3 out of 10, I can understand why others would like this way more. So, after all of that, I think looking at a bit of data is interesting. First of all, it's kind of funny that my second favorite manga was actually one from the lowest rated ones, but I'm just a sucker for artsy shit, I guess, so there's that. Overall, my average scores make sense though. 7.1 for the best ones, 5.05 for the middle ones, and 3.68 for the worst ones. Although the best and worst ones kinda get carried by one really good one, but it doesn't make too much of a difference on the score, so whatever, who cares. It's pretty neat that the middle ones even out at 5.05, which is exactly the middle of my 0.1 to 10 scale. I like that. I liked it a lot. And of course my ratings in general are much lower than the average ratings on Mal, but I think that people just don't really understand how to use a 1 to 10 scale these days and think that everything below a 7 is bad, but I could rant a fucking lot about that topic, and I think I will in a future video, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Something to point out is that 4 out of the 5 top ones were romances of all different kinds, which just in general seems to be a popular choice for one-shots, and I kinda see why. A short love story can be condensed really well in around 50 pages. I myself am not the biggest fan of romances in media a lot of the time. They just feel so unreal while trying to be relatable, and it's kinda off-putting. The authors always feel the need to make something crazy or special, or they won't stick out, and I guess that's kinda true. I just don't like how special it always has to make it out to be. But I'm also not the target audience, so whatever. I just didn't really enjoy any of the love stories. That said though, you can clearly tell which ones were better than the others. My personal favorite was the little Shinigami one. I think that they established the characters really well, and the romance actually hit me the most.
Maybe it's also my favorite because I read it first. The highest rated one was actually kinda disappointing though. It felt honestly pretty generic. Oh well. Oh, and I could have chosen like 6 romances for the mediocre ones if I wanted to. There are a lot of mediocre love story one shots. And for the 2 that I did read, The Ghost on the Rooftop and The Same Faces, I think that the biggest difference to the better ones was the establishment of the characters. To make a good romance work, it has to resonate with whoever reads it, and those 2 just didn't. The rooftop one was like the woods one in bad, and also like the photography one in bad. The wood ghost just felt like a real character, while the rooftop ghost just didn't at all. But I think if you want to actually stand out with a one shot, you shouldn't make a romance. The genre is just oversaturated with it.
Another thing that I think is pretty obvious, but I still want to point it out, is that all of the good ones also had a very well done art, while the middle ones had kinda meh art at the most. Not all of them though. The Runaway Princess one had great art, and the Light Novel Writer one had pretty good art as well. The first one was a bit lacking in the story department though, so I get why it wasn't that highly rated. The other one was actually pretty fun and overall just good, better than a few of the higher rated ones for sure, but it was also done by a successful manga artist, so there's that. I'm just saying that good conventional art is never a bad thing in a one shot. Duh. A pretty big thing that I noticed is that the mediocre one shots often didn't feel like one shots, but instead like pilot chapters for a series. And that could on one hand be a good thing if it actually made me want to read a full series with the premise of the one shot. But on the other hand, I think that the story should be completed and feel completed because, well, it's why it's called a one shot. And I think that it's important for a great one shot to be first and foremost a one shot and not a pilot chapter. And that you just have to make a decision once you come up with a story and plan to draw manga of it. Namely, if this is a story that could work as a full-fledged series or not. And if it doesn't, you could try to make a one-shot out of it, but I don't think that that leads to the best possible outcome. You probably have to have a one-shot in mind before thinking of a story for it. But I guess that's one of the biggest skills you need in storytelling in general, coming up with a story that fits whatever you want to create with the time. You can't write a story that's supposed to be 150 pages long and condense it down to 50 pages and expect the outcome to be good. That's why a lot of movies can feel lacking in comparison to the books they're based on, but at least movies can make up for it with visuals. But oh well. Just think the story out before writing it down is my point, I guess. Another thing that I noticed is about the characters. I think that a good one-shot in most cases should only focus hard on a single character, maybe 2 at most. That's mostly the case because you already only have so much time to build characters and everything else up, that too many of them will just make all of them more shallow. For example, in Tazugare Schrödinger you have the 2 main characters and on top of that the bad girl. All of them get a decent chunk of the panels and screen time, so to say, but in the end I didn't feel like any of them really made an impact. The friends just kind of fight and make up, and I honestly don't know anything about the bad guy lady. On the other hand, we have Yushagaiki no Kameramichi, where most of the story revolves around Nina, and she actually feels like a real person. You understand her feelings, her motivations and everything. It's amazing, go read it. It's also something that Naigeku Shinigami does better than the other romance manga on this list in my opinion. Both the girl and the Shinigami are strongly motivated and we can really get into their feelings. To be fair, that's also true for Tokidoki, but Shinigami just works better for me. The other romances are very focused on the girl and the relationship, which is fine and all, especially if you factor in that most of them were written for a female audience, but I personally like seeing both sides of a love story, but I suppose that's really just a target audience question. And one more thing that really only shows in one of the manga that I read for this video, but that I want to talk about a bit, is that one-shots have one thing that they can do better than series in my opinion, and that's experimenting with weird shit. Like very abstract shit with artwork and paneling and storytelling and such. And I think that one-shot should use this more often, like Kagami no Kuni no Alice did. And while it didn't work for most people in that case, I think that's due to the story being communicated very weirdly and it not making a whole lot of sense in the end. But that's exactly what I like about it. And I would like to read more just kind of different stuff like that. And full manga series just can't go full ham into weird shit like that. Well, unless you're the Nishioka siblings, of course, and that shit is pretty fucking sick. I'm planning to talk about them sometime in the future as well. But most of the work is also short stories or single volumes, so there's that. But I can understand why most artists don't want to go in that direction. It's just not that suitable for larger audiences, but it's a lot easier to stuff weird shit in short stories than into fully serialized ones, because it has to go through a committee and you have to actually find someone to publish a whole story and you have to lay them out to them and stuff and shit like that. But with a one shot it's much easier in that regard. Overall, I think the secret of making a good one shot isn't even that hard to understand or grasp at all. Just make a good condensed story that focuses on one or two characters and make great art to go along with it. Easy, right? Well, yeah. But a good one shot doesn't necessarily become a successful one, and that's okay. In the end, I think that it still largely depends on luck and other factors like knowing the right people and where or even if it gets published or randomly goes viral online. But does that really matter that much? I think that the most important thing is that you made something that you like and can be proud of, even if only you will ever read it, because what would happen if you became successful making shit you don't like? You'd probably end up hating yourself. Like we all already do, LMAO. Later, nerds!